Hello and welcome. Today we'll be talking about the Leatherman OHT. The weight's going to be 9.9 ounces. Closed length is going to be 4.5 inches. Open length is going to be 6.6 inches. Primary blade length is going to be 2.37 inches. Width is going to be 1.6 inches. And the overall thickness is 0.8 inches. The material that it's made out of for the blade is going to be 420 HC stainless steel. And the replaceable wire cutters are going to be 154 cm stainless steel. We have the Leatherman OHT in black oxidized. It has 16 different types of tools and functions with it, and it features imprinted hand scales, which detail what type of tool you'll be able to get out of the scale just by feeling the type of scale. The OHT has a fairly unique set of indicators on its scales here, and we can see on the side here different icons for the tools that pertain to the scale on that particular side or edge, and it follows it on the other side of the tool. Here's the back of the tool, and here is the top of the tool with the pliers to ply out of. And let's start with the pliers first. It runs along these rails here, and it's got two rails here with buttons here, spring-loaded buttons. We have a switch here that we can turn perpendicular to the rails, and that would lock this out from deploying out accidentally. And on our other side, important to note, along with the system, we do have a threaded hole here. And what that's for is a smaller type of cleaning brush rod that would screw in, and it's made to be used with gun ports for cleaning it out, so you have a better purchase when you go to clean them out, as this tool was designed for more of a military police type of application. Now, the deployment is similar to like a Gerber multiplier where they follow the rails out and they lock. What's nice about this is that it has a spring-loaded type of tool section here, and we have our typical Leatherman quality plier head where we have a needle nose here in the front, a regular type of pliers in the center, and then we have our 154 cm wire cutter type of pliers or cutter heads here. So that is nice to have in a plier here, and it's easy to get out once you get used to it. And if it's not gummed up, you can flick this out. And I can't do it right now, but there we go. So it'll flick out and you can use it right away. So that's the nice thing about the OHT. Now let's close this up and we can go over the other tools and the scales here. Starting on this side, we have our 2D Phillips head screwdriver. It does have a little bit of a reach, but not very much. And it's not 3D, unfortunately. Although it does have 4 different sides here, it's really a 2D type of driver. And it is liner locking. All the tools on this are liner locking here. So whatever we pull out will lock. And we can also pull it out with one hand, for example. Hence the name, one-handed tool, OHT. This is our slotted screwdriver and also our rescue cutting blade. We can close that down, and we can open up the serrated blade here based on the icon, and that'll open up all the way. It'll click into place. It's a short serrated blade, however it does have a sheep's foot end and a draw cutting edge there. And then we can try to close that down, and we can go ahead and access our smaller slotted screwdriver here, and we can close that as well. It's a very small piece, but it's good for getting into small places if we have to. Next, on the other side, we have our bottle cap can opener combo here, and we can also close that down. Again, it's also liner locking. And then we have our saw, which is fairly small here, a very small length of saw, and we can also close that. And then next we have our main blade of the unit, which is quite small, but still very usable and very sharp, as we can see here. And it's got a nice point there for poking, perhaps. And we can close this down and access the slotted screwdriver, the bigger one, a little bit more fatter one. And we can use that for light duty prying if we want it to, but it also locks there and folds back in. So that's the tool set of the OHT. I do have another similar tool in a similar category here that we can compare for reference. This is the Leatherman Super Tool 300, for example, and we can kind of see based on the length, it's almost the same length, and the OHT is a slight bit wider than the Super Tool 300. Important to note that you can access all the tools on the outside of the OHT, whereas the 300 you cannot. However, we do have a ruler markings and in centimeters and inches on the outside. The plier base on the Super Tool 300, we can compare to the OHT here briefly. The OHT comes out in a different method, obviously, of deployment. However, immediately you'll see one is spring-loaded and one is not. They both have the replaceable 154 cm wire cutters, and the Super Tool plier head is slightly beefier and reinforced. The other main differences with the OHT and, say, other types of Leatherman tools, particularly in this category, for example, is the main blade here. We can kind of see that this blade is quite larger and longer than the OHT blade. So we can pull that out and compare the sizes here. And obviously, you're getting a little bit less tool set on the OHT versus a standard type of Leatherman. And I'll call it standard because this is, in my opinion, a more specific type of tool. So another thing to note, and that we'll go over here, is the quality of the drivers. While the slotted drivers are fairly somewhat on the same level, the 2D versus a 3D driver is not, and for obvious reasons. A 3D driver, more points of contact, better contact points, more grip. And let's go ahead and pull out our driver here and compare the length. So we have a fully 3D one on the Super Tool 300 and the 2D. This one can also be used with an accessory that can adapt other types of drivers on it, which is fairly nice, as is a modular attachment point. This cannot. So that is important to note with the OHT. Basically, in summary, based on the tool comparisons of other Leatherman types of tools in the similar category, you're getting inferior type of tools on the OHT in exchange for an easier deployment method. So that is the trade-off with the pros and cons on the OHT. Now, the main plier head deployment is similar to some of the Gerber type of pliers where they do slide out as well. But I think this is a little bit better done in that it's a little bit more smoother. It has an actual locking tab here, and they managed to build into it another attachment point for a brush of some sort or another threaded type of attachment that you could put in there for an aftermarket use. It's very smooth. It's also spring-loaded, which is quite rare for a Leatherman type of tool compared to, say, a PS4 or an ES4 type of tool, like a micro tool. So it's nice that they actually have a spring-loaded tool similar to like the Sidekick or the Wingman or the other type of tool out there. I can't think of the name, but the similar to a Rev, but it's one step up. The Bolster. That's the name. So those are some of the tools that do have spring-loaded plier heads, which is good. This is one of the bigger, heavier duty type of tools that has it, which is nice. Overall, who is this tool for? It's probably for first responders and military and police personnel, potentially. I use it in my fireman exterior bunker gear, as I want something that's a little bit more all-encompassing and not as weight heavy or just bulky in the limited amount of space that I have in my bunker gear. And for reference, I'm only an exterior firefighter, so this is an experimental type of tool that I'm using with that gear in conjunction with other types of tools. So this is not the only tool that I want, but it's the first thing I'll probably reach for in addition to some other multi-tools on me. That being said, I think the OHT is a 50-50. If you're looking for an EDC tool, this is probably not the one for you. If you're looking for a very specific driven tool for a specific purpose, this may be the tool for you. Granted, its pros is the one-handed operation and accessible of all the tools on the outside. So that's the main draw point of the OHT, and I think they did a decent job of executing that with this. And that's all I have to say about the OHT. Thank you for watching, and enjoy your day.